I kept my mom's secret for years, and that came back to bite me eventually. I didn't realize that was something most parents never taught their children until that moment. Remember that Vicodin magnifies the effects of alcohol, and they looked at me like I was insane. Thanksgiving break 2012 was supposed to be all about eating great food and filming a few scenes from Carpe Diem. But the moment I stepped back into my childhood home, I realized I'd be dealing with a whole different set of issues than when I was in college. Today's lesson is sometimes chasing your dreams means carrying the weight of where you come from. I got back to Monterey County on the evening of November 20th, back to the Salinas condo where I grew up. And I woke up on Wednesday the 21st and knew time was ticking if I wanted to shoot a Carpe Diem scene before heading back to college. But one important thing I'd forgotten to keep in mind is that I lost almost all autonomy when I went home. Simple errands became big challenges because I had to rely on either friends or family for rides, and that meant I got a glimpse into my mom's new reality, and it scared the hell out of me. Thursday was Thanksgiving, Friday was a Carpe Diem shoot, and I left to return to school on Sunday morning. So that Wednesday, luckily, was the only day I saw her normal work day, and the only day my dad wasn't around, since he'd used his vacation days to get Thanksgiving and the weekend off in preparation for me coming back. So what happened that day? Well, my mom woke up, got ready, popped 3 Vicodin pills, and then drove me to her parents' house where she took care of her mom, which meant do laundry, make the two of them a meal, and give my grandma the right medication. But it also meant watch TV together, eat some chocolate, and talk about how much they enjoyed watching Ellen and Dr. Phil. Afterwards, we went to Angelina's Pizzeria, where I got a pizza and my mom ordered a salad with an 18-ounce beer. After eating a few slices, I walked off to go to the bathroom and I ran into Holly Bryant. And we caught up a little since we hadn't seen each other since the Carpe Diem shoot back in season 3, episode 2. I was smiling as I returned to the table, but I saw a second 18-ounce beer on the table that wiped the smile from my face. I finished the rest of the pizza, my mom finished the second beer, and she began to look visibly tipsy. Remember that Vicodin magnifies the effects of alcohol, and most beers are 12 ounces, not 18. I was a little nervous to get in the car, but she drove me home using a technique she'd taught me when I was a kid. She controlled the pedals, and I used my left hand to reach over and control the wheel so the car wouldn't swerve. I hadn't had to side drive, as I called it, in months, and it had shaken me a little. I remember how I offered to side drive for someone in college when they were drunk, and they looked at me like I was insane. I didn't realize that was something most parents never taught their children until that moment. And to be honest, I wish I'd talked more openly about family life and drug use the way I did sports and homework. And maybe then I would have noticed the differences sooner. But unfortunately, I kept my mom's secret for years, and that came back to bite me eventually. We made it home alive, luckily, and I let out a deep sigh, breathing the last clean air of the night. Because the first thing my mom did was sit down on the couch in the living room, take her next round of pills, pack a bowl of some medical-grade weed in a small pipe, and smoked without opening any windows or doors. We watched TV through the haze of smoke, and she offered me a hit, which I declined, although I'm sure I probably got a bit of a contact high anyway. Then she went upstairs, took her nighttime pills, got in bed, and hotboxed the bedroom. I remember seeing this and being surprised that she'd added the stop for food and beers to her normal routine, probably because without me around, she had no one else to make her meals for her and no motivation to make anything for herself. It was strange to come back to this after having been in college for a few months, but I did my best to put the day's events out of my mind and focus on pre-production for the scenes I wanted to shoot. But I hadn't remembered just how draining it was being home again. Thanksgiving Day was a great feast, and my mother was on much better behavior because my dad was there and he's been stone cold sober for about 40 years. Thanksgiving might be a little ironic since my family has some Lakota, Mohican, and Uto Aztecan blood running through our veins, 3 indigenous peoples that were not really fans of the way the U.S. taught and celebrated Thanksgiving, but my family was kind of a mess of contradictions like that. But then came the shoot day, and I was enjoying life again and spending time with friends, because 4 of the original A-Tyke 5 back from Season 1, Episode 1 gathered at Aaron Shee's house to shoot what would be Scene 2 and Scene 6 of Carpe Diem. It was great to be back with that group, and we started with a scene that I called Checklist, which began with Aaron Shee and Tyler Zenda's characters, Daniel and Angel, sleeping in bed while Jack and Ross knocked on the door to go over an equipment checklist before leaving for the Europe trip. This was something we'd actually done in real life with my Uncle Steve before we left, so I thought it grounded the film in reality a little bit more to show us talking about what we'd need instead of just appearing with decked out backpacks full of gear. Once we were done with that setup, we left Aaron's bedroom and went outside to shoot Angel's half of a phone call for a different scene. It was daytime though, and we needed it to be nighttime, so we shot it in a way that didn't show the sky and ended up adding some color in post-production to pass it off as potentially taking place at night or at least late afternoon. We went back inside Aaron's house after that and got ready to shoot the big angry rant that Tyler got to do. We were happy to have that whole rant shot in about 15 minutes, since a good amount of it had been improvised and it involved a lot of movement that was hard to track with the camera.
All the other women you had, I thought we were official. You know, I thought you were actually a good guy, but I guess I was way wrong with that, wasn't I? You just use girls. I can't take it anymore. You screwed me over so hard last night when you did not even show up to our days. But I guess not, because you do not know how to treat a woman. You just use me. Like, I'm just a piece of ass. You know what, Daniel? You're not even like a good guy. You always treat me like crap. You don't even think I'm not meaning for you.
Jesus, it's fine this week.
For you at all. Do you know how that makes me feel? Like, you can't even look me in the eyes right now. It's not funny!
We got Aaron's character's coverage and a couple of close-ups, and then shot a funny insert of Tyler knocking on the window and flipping him off, but that actually didn't make it into the final cut of the film, although I kind of wish it had.
I don't know when!
Colin! How's your cut?
We went outside to get a couple of over-the-shoulder shots of the Jack-Ross duo knocking on the door and that whole interaction, one shot from each side. But that was tough because the lighting felt very different inside the house versus outside the house. But that was a problem I dealt with in post-production since we didn't have lights anywhere near strong enough to match the sun. We shot the next scene in the kitchen area, which ended up being a bit of a mistake because it was much darker in that room and we didn't have a way to match the lighting from the living room. One battery-powered LED brick was the only way we were able to save that footage and make it usable, but it was a little grainy even then. At that point, the sun began to set, so we went upstairs and lit Aaron's room for a nighttime scene, the other half of the phone call with Angel that we'd shot day for night earlier that day. We started that scene with a pan up of Aaron's character, Daniel, asleep at his desk while his phone rang. It took 3 takes to get a good pan, but after that we just got one insert of his phone ringing, one close-up of him talking, and figured that was plenty of coverage for his half of the call. And that was a wrap on that day's shoot. Those scenes were back-to-back in the final cut of the film, 3 minutes and 38 seconds of screen time added, so it was a solid chunk of establishing who these characters were in the introduction of the film before they went overseas. I was happy with what we'd gotten and glad to be making more of the movie again after such a long break, other than the failed Penn Park attempt. Storytime. Before heading back to college, I met up with another group of friends at Max Houston's house, a name you'll probably recognize if you've been watching this series from the beginning. I was just glad to get out of my family's smoke-filled condo, and while we were there, we ended up debating what one of us really meant when he said he wanted good Chinese food. Was he talking about P.F. Chang's, Chef Lee's, or Chinese Gourmet Express? It was hard to tell with him, and there were a couple of memorable lines from that night. One guy said, "Don't look at me like you're not a shit eater, shit eater." Well, how do I know what you consider good food? You could be eating trash for all I know. You're dirtier than my browser history. You take that back. And don't bring my browser history into this. Every woman has something that makes her beautiful. And I happen to like whatever that thing is. Oh, you said your browser history? Never mind then. Forget I said that. That's probably all I should say from that conversation. But if you thought this episode was a little all over the place, just wait till next week when you hear about crazy dancing zombies.
9 in the morning.
Where do you think you're going? We're not done yet. Remember ditching me last night? Yeah, thanks for making it up to me and making me breakfast in bed.
Hold that thought. Hold on. Come in. What do you guys want? I'm a little busy right now.
We're leaving tomorrow, man. We were gonna come over, make sure we had everything we need. Remember?
Well then. Just drop your stuff off in the living room.
Really, Daniel? You're gonna treat me like this? You just use me and then just leave me like that? Am I just another woman to you? Do I mean nothing? Just like all the other girls you sleep with? I thought we were gonna be official, you know, like boyfriend and girlfriend like people usually say. But that's not possible with you, is it? You treat me like one of the guys, and you know how that makes me feel? Like nothing. You're a horrible person.
Jesus,
You
that's the
do
fifth
not-
one this week.
I know. Let's just try to focus. We're leaving tomorrow.
And you know what, Daniel? I'm done. I'm leaving.